looking good. I was able to get that lifter off by welding my own vice grips on there. All I only needed is one good push and it came off. But look how bad this thing is, man. The whole roller was like, the roller almost came off with the actual lifter and it was just grinding against the cam. The cam isn't as bad as I thought it would be. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is grinded down, but I've seen a lot worse and the cam isn't as bad. So I did throw a new cam in there, which you just seen. I got my timing all set. The way you set the timing on these, you see this little dial over here, the little mark. Make sure it's lined up at 12 o'clock. And then you top dead center on piston number 1 should be all the way up top. And then that's about it. So when you take off the sprocket for the cam, just lean it to the side. You don't have to move it anywhere. As long as nothing changes, you should your timing should be all good to go when you put it back together. But I got my tensioner back on. All you got to do is press that back, put a pin in there to lock it, and you got 2 10mm bolts. Take that off. You set it to the side. Just be careful. Make sure the chain is also on the oil pump when you're putting everything back together. But other than that, it's pretty easy. Someone has been in there for sure. Like the bolts were filled with silicone. Look at that. So I guess they came in here, they couldn't figure it out, and then they just put everything back together. But I'm almost done. I got all my new lifters in, and I kind of showed you on camera. They say on them front and rear, so you can't get them wrong. MDS front, MDS rear. You never want to switch these around. You'll have a big problem. So I got those dropped in. I got them tightened down. I have to get that new what is it called, a phaser or whatever it is. I have to install that before getting the intake on. I could probably put the heads on tonight. I also need a gasket for the timing cover. This one's worn out pretty good. I don't want to reuse that, so we'll get that replaced. The front main seal looks okay to me, so I'm gonna leave that alone, and that's about it. So I'm gonna get these heads cleaned up. I'll put them on with the new gaskets, and then tomorrow I'll go to the dealer. I'll get the new gasket for the timing cover and finish this thing up, and hopefully we saved it. All right, so far so good. I got most of the stuff put back together. Got the heads back on with new gaskets. Got valve covers on with new gaskets. Got the coils back on. Got the timing cover back on. Got the crank pulley on. Alternators back on. Only thing I have to do is install the AC compressor, the idler pulley, the belt tensioner, and that's really it. And I'll drain the oil, put some fresh oil in there. And then I'm not gonna drive it out of here. I gotta tow it back to the shop. We'll put the exhaust manifolds back on, and we should be good to go. I had the exhaust manifolds from this one when I put the headers on, so I got lucky on that. But this one over here is the MDS solenoid that broke off. I ended up picking it up yesterday from the dealer, so we'll install that real quick. They're just 1 10mm bolt that holds it in place. And this is a lifter that came out of here. Look at this thing. I wish I had the other one to show you guys the difference, but these are supposed to be quiet. They're not supposed to be making that noise, but imagine this thing spinning at a couple thousand RPMs into the engine and rubbing against that cam. I had to weld a pair of vice grips on here and use a really big pry bar to yank that thing out. So I got lucky that it came out without giving me a hard time. But look at the camshaft. Camshaft is eating, like, chew it up through there. But yep, that's really it. That's the AC compressor. I'll throw it back on in a second, but let me get the intake back on here. I'll pull out these towels. The reason why I have these in here so nothing falls up through there, through the heads. So, I gotta do that first. So I'm gonna do that. We'll finish that up, and then we're moving next door to finish up the Hellcat swap that we're working on.
Perfect.
And that's it. Everything's back together. Everything's looking good. I'm not going to start it now. I want to take it to the shop. We'll put new oil in it, change the filter, top it off with coolant. I got to put the cooling system back on, put the exhaust manifolds back on, and then we'll start it, bleed the coolant, and hopefully everything should be fine. So I got to move the cars out of the driveway. We're going to put it in neutral. We're going to roll it down the street, have a tow guy come pick it up, and we'll see it at the shop. All right, guys, next day here. So before we get started talking about the swap that's next door, I want to show you guys the parts that came out of it. I know I've seen a few of the comments and people were asking, what am I going to do with the other parts? So initially, I was selling it as a kit. So whoever wanted the 5.7 upgrade, I was going to do a swap for them and then, swap out if they had a V6, whatever. But now I'm so tight on time. I have no more space, as you can see. So I'm going to be selling the kit as it is. So you're getting the motor, the trans. You're literally getting everything that you need to upgrade if you have a V6 or whatever you got going on to a 5.7 Hemi. This one came off of 2020, so it does have the 8-speed trans. So it's a lot better than the 5-speed, obviously. I'm going to be giving you guys the fuel tank, the front rear suspension, all the harnesses that you need, the dry shaft, the coolant. The engine and trans are still mounted together. The PCM is still on there. So even the key, I'll give you guys a key to start this thing once you got it, put it back together. There's some more parts on the other side. Here's a cooling system complete with the cooling fan. The brakes are still on the suspension. I didn't take those off. You got your master cylinder. You got your body control module right over there. So literally everything that you need is here. I got the center console not down the street. I got them downstairs. The only thing that you're not going to get with this kit is the interior. And you're not going to get wheels. So that's two things that you have to get on your own. But everything else is here. You're literally, if you do this the right way, you watch the videos, and you've been following along, you can do this yourself, and you're going to have an upgrade to a 5.7 with an 8-speed. I'm asking $5,500 for everything that you see here, which I think is a really good deal. I mean, that motor alone is probably worth around $25 to $3,000, probably more. The trans, you got your front rear suspension, you got the harnesses, the cooling system. There's a lot of stuff here, and I think it's worth it. I also got the center console. I think I already mentioned that. The dash harness is still next door, so I'm going to grab that. You get your cluster. You're going to get the... I'll even throw in the radio. You get the radio frequency hub. So literally everything is going to work if you do it right. So that's that on this. I'm also going to leave the phone number to my assistant. You could call him or text him to lock in a deal on this, and if you guys... are interested in buying this, you'll come on down and you get to see the Hellcat and you get to see some of the other builds going on here. But moving on, so this I'm going to be parting out starting tomorrow. I got to figure out why it's running so rough and get that fixed before I strip it. And then now we're going to go next door and see the Hellcat swap. And here is the 300 and what's left of it so far. Everything's pulled out of here. We already gutted it down to the bone. And we actually already got the new harness installed. I forgot to mention that we got a new harness from the dealer. And I'll show you how that looks here in a second. All right, so this is a new harness. I mentioned this in the previous video that the old one was damaged. So I ended up getting a new one from the dealer. Kind of took a bite out of that. It was almost $1,000. But I couldn't save the old one. It's way too messed up. So this is a new one. We already got mostly probably 90% installed. I still got to do the rear over here where the the radio frequency hub goes and the speakers. And then there's a trick to this. Usually I'll drop down the headliner, take off the pillars and all that. But instead of doing that, you see where the airbag harness goes, which is this. The reason why you got to drop all this is because the harness routes behind this bracket. But instead of doing that, I'm just going to splice it right here and rewire the airbag harness. And then I'll save a lot of time instead of dropping the whole headliner down. If you do it right, then you won't have any issues. And you'll save a lot of time. And then on the inside over here, we already got that's the airbag module plugged in. Body control modules plugged in. And then right over here is emergency brake, which is bolts on with 3 bolts. And that's it. The rear suspension is already gone. I already showed you guys that next door. Rear suspension, front suspension. We still got to install the cabin unit, which goes right in there. And then once the cabin unit is installed, we'll install the front headlamp to dash harness, and it routes through that hole. And then we can start installing everything else. We also had to get a new gas line, which is right over here. This is the new one. The old one was pinched. So I got lucky and was able to get a new one from the dealer. And what else do we got? The brake lines are still fine. Oh, the evap line was pinched right over here. So I'm gonna see if it's the same off the 5.7 and reuse it. If not, then we have to get a new one of those too. Well, that's it. We're gonna continue working on this, see where we finish up, and hopefully have it started though by tomorrow. So we got the frame swapped over. The old one was bent from the impact, so we ended up using the original 300 frame to make it work. Got the harness swapped over. So this harness is off the Hellcat, but the shell and the actual dash is obviously from the 300. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking the faceplate off the 300 cluster, and I'm gonna make it work on the Hellcat cluster by just removing these two pieces, installing it, and just literally plug and play. So this one is gonna fit right in there.